Welcome everyone to EA Global Summit 2022. This is Sujat from EA Global Summit organizing team. It's our privilege to have Horst Call in our presence. Horst is the principal consultant, trainer, and a product manager, presenting modeling but the right way. And I also thank everyone for your interest in joining the session. For your kind information that we will be muting all the participants throughout the session. So please use the chat window to drop your questions to the speakers and your queries will be answered at the end of the session. We request everyone to visit the allotted Microsoft Teams channel to communicate with the host and the other EA practitioners after the session. They both agreed to accept to stay in the channel to have a one-on-one discussion and answer all your queries. The link to the MS Teams channel will be posted in the chat window for your quick reference. If you have any difficulties in connecting to Teams, please let us know through the chat window or write us at registrations@eaglobalsummit.com. Thanks once again for your interest and support to EA Global Summit 2022. Without any further ado, I'll request Horst to start his presentation. Over to you, Horst.
Okay, thank you. I will share my screen and turn on the video as well so that you can see me. Hello, my name is Horst, and this is my presentation. Yeah, screen one. So you should see now my Enterprise Architect window. And the mind map I have created for the agenda of today. I will start with a short introduction about who is Sparx Systems, what we are doing. Yeah. So we are. So I'm Horst Kage. I am part of Sparx Systems Central Europe. And Sparx Systems Central Europe is a sister company of Sparx Systems headquartered. Sparx Systems Central Europe is also part of the Liber Group, which is the holding which consists of other companies like Sparx Services Central Europe and Liber. So these different companies have different focus. Like in Sparx Systems Central Europe, our focus is to sell licenses, give trainings and coaching consultings around modeling and enterprise architect. With Sparx Services, the focus is mainly to give consultings and coaching. Our focus here is especially enterprise architect management. And in Liber, we are, it's a partner company of Sparx Systems headquarter. In Liber, we develop products based on enterprise architect and are heavily in the domain of model-based systems engineering. So these are the three main topics we cover: enterprise architect management, model-based systems engineering, and model-based software engineering. So maybe a few details from my side. So I'm Horst Kage. I'm the head of the trainer and principal consultant, as Jafar already mentioned. I am in the modeling domain since 1998. First contact with Enterprise Architect and Sparx Systems was already in 2006, so I gave my first trainings for modeling with Enterprise Architect. This time I was still a research assistant at the Vienna University of Technology, and I joined Sparx Systems Central Europe in 2008. My current topics I'm working on is, we are developing a training platform, which you can access here with etraining.sparxsystems.eu. It's still under development, but we have already a few online trainings. We use this trainings as well, or this platform also in our classroom trainings, but we have also a few self-paced trainings. I'm the author of the EA Compendium, and my interest is, so my focus, model-based software development, model-based systems engineering, and enterprise architect management. And you know that enterprise architect itself is a modeling platform which consists of, I think, more than 80 modeling languages, the latest release. The languages I speak is UML, I speak very well, and SysML, BPMN. Starting with DMN already, I'm also speaking Archimate, the NATO architecture framework, also an enterprise architect management framework. I give already a few trainings about this, and for data modeling and entity relationship models and the data models of enterprise architect. And the focus of the talk today is, and this is also one or two topics I'm into, is to develop a modeling approach, a specific method, how to use the tool Enterprise Architect with a specific language to solve different problems in these three domains. And we will also see how to, or the possibilities to adopt Enterprise Architect to fully support our modeling approach. Okay, so let's go back to the overview. I will start here with actually the recapitulation of a talk I gave already in 2019. It was part of the webinar series of Sparx Systems headquarters. You can also find this talk, How to Succeed with a Modeling Approach, part 1, on YouTube, or you should also find it on the Sparx page, sparx.com, in the webinar area. I will not give the full talk. Yeah, it's about 1 hour, but I will just give a recapitulation of the most important parts, what we need for actually the second part here, how to succeed with the modeling approach part 2, which is, yeah, more or less the talk I planned to give as a second part for part 1. But this is now the workshop. So we have 3 hours time, not just 1 hour. So I have added a few other topics and go into more details about, yeah, how to implement this modeling approach. I will also introduce or recapitulate another talk I gave. It was another ES Summit, Global Summit in 2020. You can also find it on YouTube when you search for meta modeling. It was about how to do, what is a meta model and how to do meta modeling in Enterprise Architect. Again, just a recapitulation of the important topics here to get, yeah, the foundation of what we would like to do next. And here I would like to give a hands-on demo how to create a simple MDG technology and try to use the platform features of Enterprise Architect to fully support my MDG technology. And here in this talk, or in this topic here, I would like to run you through an existing example. It's much bigger than this, yeah, and point out a few other topics, how Enterprise Architect behaves and what we can do, and the overall process. So it's more or less the implementation of what we see or saw here in this part here. Yeah, then just a summarize of the most important topics from here. And then here I will get a bit more technical to show you the possibilities when it comes to answering questions or creating the model. Because when we have a specific modeling approach, we have the idea to create a model based on a specific process or rules and guidelines, which may lead to more or less complicated models, which is required to be able to answer our questions. And if we have problems to creating this model, so we have a lot of possibilities to make it easier. Or when we have a more or less complex model and we would like to get an answer, we have a lot of possibilities to get the answer with one click. And the prerequisite of doing this is to have a modeling approach with dedicated rules and guidelines. Okay, so here it's working, so I will check why it's not working here. What I'm using here is actually something I would like to go into details here in this topics, using Scriptlets to dynamically change my model, which is reflected here with this coloring. So if we have discussed a topic, this will be automatically marked as discussed. So I will check why it's not working here. So the scriptlet is here. I think I know why. So I will go back to my start page, close everything except, so the start page. Open the agenda. So if I'm jumping into this and I'm going back, yeah, now it's working. What the issue was, I will come back to this when we talk about scriptlets. Okay, so now first recapitulation of part one of how to succeed with the modeling approach. Why should we model? Okay, let's discuss about the slides. Yeah, it's not just a recapitulation of the talk. I have also added a few more points of views, more slides like this. What is this about when we are talking about models, or why we are modeling? Actually, we are talking about writing a specification or a plan or just document something. Yeah, and what we are doing is the following. We're using symbols, put them in specific context to get data, put it in a context to get information, put it in a context to get knowledge, and then we use this knowledge to make decisions. How should we do it? Why should we do it? And who is doing it? And maybe more. Like in the example here, I have symbols. If I know the context that these are Roman numbers, I know that this is 8.6.1955. If I have the context that this is the birth of date, then I know that this is a birth date. And if I have the context that this is the birth date of Tim Berners-Lee, I know that Tim Berners-Lee is 67 years in the year 2022. And I can use this knowledge for my decisions. Yeah, this is based actually on, we can trace this back to T.S. Eliot from 1934. And here is also one step further, wisdom. Yeah, we have knowledge in a specific context, we have wisdom. Yeah, but knowledge is enough for us. Okay. So, but we do modeling. In the modeling domain, we have other symbols. So here we have modeling language. We have different modeling languages, like just point out from UML a few elements like the use case, the actor, the association, and the multiplicity. But this is just symbol, and the context is, yeah, this is the multiplicity. Another context, this is the lower bound, the upper bound. Another context that this is a UML SysML class use case diagram, and we know how to read it. And we can use this to make our decisions. So the important part is when we are talking about modeling, graphical modeling languages, it's actually about information or structured data, which brings us the knowledge we need to make our decisions. Yeah. And why we should do this with a modeling tool with Enterprise Architect, yeah, with a modeling platform, Enterprise Architect, because the Enterprise Architect platform provides us a lot of automations we can use to organize our structured data. You know that Enterprise Architect has a database as the backend, so it's a database management system. Newest versions, you know, it's the new format, the QEAX. It's a SQL-like database. You can use any kind of database management system. So there's an easy way to work in a team to create and manipulate our data here. The first low-hanging fruit is to generate the documents. So we don't write the documents anymore in Word or Visio and PowerPoint. So we model everything and just click on a button and generate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 documents. And we do it if we do it the right way and keep everything consistent and complete inside of this model repository, structured data. When we change something, we have a single point of information. We change it once and generate the documents and get a complete document. And this information may occur on 25 pages in a 100-page document. And we don't care if to find all the spots in the printed document or in the written Word document because we have a single point of information. So it's the first low-hanging fruit, but this is already, even if this is the only goal you have working with models, so this is already a big benefit. But we have a lot of other benefits we have with Enterprise Architect. For instance, we can process the structured data and generate other structured data like source code, XML schemas, database schemas, and we can also reverse engineer them. We can also generate other kind of structured text like test cases, test handbooks. There are also other extensions using Enterprise Architect as a platform and the structured data to generate some of these documents. And there is also the possibility to create a tool chain. Yeah, so to put Enterprise Architect into a tool chain, there are a lot of out-of-the-box integrations, but Enterprise Architect has an automation interface which allows us to interface any other tools. So we can easily import data, process the data, and export the data. We can also process the data within Enterprise Architect. So it's a template-based model transformation approach. But we can also, again, use the automation interface to do any kind of manipulations of the structured data. Like we can do model validation or model simulation, which is also a kind of validation, a semantical validation of our structured data, of our model. Yeah, and so that every of these automations is doing its job as expected, we need rules and guidelines. Yeah, because if I have a document template which requires a specific structure or specific informations linked to each other to generate the document, we need rules and guidelines, or we have to make this document template really intelligent and to be able to work with any kind of structured data to get the same generated document. Okay, so let's go back. What should we model? So this is actually the first important question you should have in mind when you start modeling with any modeling tool and any modeling language. So how to find the right approach? Again, because we are dealing with structured data or information we would like to put into our models, we can have now different points of view. We can just model a sketch or a blueprint. We can just document our decisions, or we put a lot of details into our model so that the model itself becomes the source of whatever, generating the source code or generating JSON files, which are the input of other processes, or just trace dependencies and so on. For doing this, we need different dimensions, the knowledge about these 4 dimensions here. Because a fool with a tool is just a fool. You know, if you don't know how to use a tool, you will not succeed. And Enterprise Architect is a really powerful tool. We can do many things with Enterprise Architect. I always compare it with a CAD program, so computer-aided design, so to draw 3D models or mechanical plans. I did this in my earlier life. And so you can, for instance, model, it's also kind of model, a cube, which looks like a cube, but it's just a few lines, but don't act as a cube. So the tool itself cannot calculate the volume, or you cannot turn the cube. So if you don't know how to use a tool, you use it the wrong way, and this maybe leads to more work or not the expected result. But a genius without a tool is not productive. So if you're an expert in modeling language or modeling approach, so you know exactly how to do this, and you would like to do this on paper, on the whiteboard, or electronic paper, like other tools, without a model repository, you will fail. Yeah, and a genius without a plan is lost. So if you just know the language, SysML, very well, and know how to do this or how to use it in Enterprise Architect. Unfortunately, SysML don't tell me what I should do and how I should do it. It just gives me the words to express myself. So I need a modeling approach. And of course, the more experience I have, the easier it is to elaborate a modeling approach. And how to do this, and this is the most important slide in the part 1. So how to find a modeling approach? We should always have these 2 questions in mind. Who reads the model and what information should be read from the model? But this is not enough. We have to formulate concrete questions like, what signals do we have? Who receives the signal? Who sends the signal? And then try to find a model representation which allows us to answer the question. So we are using specific symbols, put it into a context and say, okay, we use UML, and UML has a signal element. So we have already the context of UML, and if you know UML, you know what a signal is. Who receives the signal? We put this in another context and say, okay, UML also has a concept like reception. And if a class has a reception, I know that this class receives a signal or is able to receive a signal. And in UML, we have, in the activity model, we have a send signal action, which allows us to specify to send a signal. And if this send signal action is contained in an activity, in the behavior, what belongs to another class, to your class, I know that your class is sending my signal, and my class is able to receive it. So this is just following the possibilities of UML. We can also do the same things in SysML, so there is no difference. But if I would use another language like Archimate, maybe the model would look different. But maybe I have the same questions. Yeah, and stay in UML. And if this is the only question we have, we can end up with a much simpler solution. Like, okay, I keep my signal, and I keep my classes, but instead of a reception and a send signal action, which is contained in an activity, which is contained in a class, which is already more or less complicated structure, not that easy to maintain or find the information inside, we can simply use an information flow. And as an information item, as the conveyed item, we are selecting a signal. Then I can answer the question, what signals do we have? Yeah, we have the signals. Who is sending the signal? So who is the source of an information flow with my signal? So it's your class. And the target is the receiver, my class. So much more simpler to create, to maintain. So if we do it this way, so what we're doing here is actually we are creating a reference model. So we call it reference model. So we have different questions and trying to find a model which allows us to answer this question. So this is the reference for the next project. So do it this way. In order to make it more general, we derive from this reference model a so-called project meta model. A meta model we will see in the next step that a meta model is just a schema which provides the rules how to do something, how to combine something, how to structure something. Yeah, and the project meta model. Yeah, by the way, UML itself has its own meta model with the rules, the semantic rules, the syntactic rules. But the project meta model tells me how to do this for my project. Like in my project, I have a specific structure in the project browser, which contains the model elements. So I have additional rules and guidelines on top of the meta model of UML, if I'm using UML. So if we follow these rules, we will prevent to model too much or too complex. Yeah, so we find the easiest way. Yeah, you always find the easiest representation, and for this you need experience. So the fourth dimension from the previous slide. And every model has a purpose. Yeah, because we have the questions. So that's the important part. Don't model something without a stakeholder question. Yeah, if you just know if you just know the language and you're an expert in the language and you like to put everything you know into the model, then you get a too big model. And the problem is the maintenance. So if you don't maintain the model, the information gets outdated, or the effort is too high to keep the model up to date. And then it's less than a benefit. So it's actually a drawback to have it modeled if the model is not up to date. Because then you look at the model and think this is the information, but actually this is the outdated information. If there is no model, you know that there is nothing, and you can ask. So one rule is, again, model as less as possible, but as much as needed. And what is needed can be derived if you follow this approach. Good. If we have a closer look at the modeling approach consists of the method and the process. As mentioned already, the method tells me what language element should I use. So first, should we use UML, should we use SysML, Archimate, or a combination of it? And what elements should be used to answer which questions? What connectors should we use? Because many modeling languages have, or especially UML and SysML, provides a lot of possibilities to answer a question. So to do it this way or that way. Yeah. What element should be connected with which connector? Yeah. So not just the subset of connectors, but also the rules how elements are linked to each other. So the meta model of UML or SysML or BPMN, Archimate allows me to use different connectors, but we can restrict it and say, okay, if I would like to express this question, my model should look like this. So what we are doing here is, and if I need something else, which is not part of my language, or if I need it in more details or more information about an information or data, I can add stereotypes and tag values. This is part of the UML profile, but the way how we can extend languages, or this is how in Enterprise Architect additional languages are implemented. So here we get our domain-specific languages for our modeling approach domain. And then we have to think about the structure of the project browser, which element should be structured in which package. So here we can get the model structure and then the governance, additional rules and guidelines, which are not part of the meta model defined here. And the process is pretty simple. So here we just think about which artifact should be created, when, and who's responsible for it. So what we will address now in this talk today, or in this workshop, is the possibility to extend Enterprise Architect. Yeah. And here I can also define the subset of something, like I would like to use just a subset of UML, a subset of SysML, a subset of BPMN, which you may already know how to do this, but maybe something new is we have also the possibility to configure and restrict Enterprise Architect to not show everything else. So we can really get just a subset of what we need and the extensions we would like to have. So this is exactly 100% my modeling approach. I cannot do anything else, just what I have defined. So this should be the aim. And we can do this already with Enterprise Architect. Yeah, maybe not 100%, but we get really close to this. Okay, and there's also a process behind we suggest to follow. First, of course, you need to know the tool. So what is possible? Not just the tool, but also the language, and maybe one approach how to do something. Yeah, so the basic knowledge. What is modeling? How to do this in Enterprise Architect? And then the next step is you should think about the questions you would like to answer. not just start right away with modeling, just think about, okay, who are my stakeholders, why I should do this, and what is the interesting information. And then we create this reference model. So this example derived from the reference model, the project meta model, and do the stress test. So within the stress test, we figure out if the project meta model works, and maybe we can do a lot of configurations and additional automations in Enterprise Architect, like creating an MDG technology, what we would like to do today, and think about additional automations to fully support our modeling approach. And then if you would like to work with this approach in a bigger team, we can also prepare a training based on this approach. So then the rest of your team don't need to learn everything what is possible in Enterprise Architect, just the important steps. Yeah. Okay, so this was just the short recapitulation of part 1. Now I would like to jump into part 2 or part 1.5. So this is the intermediate part. Remember, this was about meta modeling. I just would like to recapitulate the most important concepts when it comes to meta modeling, because here we would like to create something like this. So what is a meta model? As already mentioned, a meta model is a schema. And we can do this here in Enterprise Architect like this. You may say that, okay, this is a class diagram. Yeah, why should this be a meta model? It just depends on the point of view. Of course, this is a class diagram. This is my model. And then I can create an instantiation of this model, which is actually my model. Yeah. But from the Uml's point of view, we say that, okay, this is an instance, a specification of a company Sparx System Center Europe. There are 2 persons, Urs Kagel, Hans Bartmann, and then we have 2 different connectors, employed at and managing director. Yeah, here we have employed at, and here we have managing director. And this is actually the data we are dealing. Remember, when we talk about graphical modeling languages, we have structured data, and this is the data, and this is the concrete syntax. So the modeling language could look like this. So we are modeling a company, and here are 2 persons working at the company. So the employed at and managing director relation is not visible here. Maybe this is not a link between something, but it's just an information which is stored at the company or at the person itself. So let's consider another example, which is maybe more familiar. This is a simplified meta model of a use case diagram or UML. Yeah, so we have an actor, we have a use case, and we have an association. Yeah, here, actor, use case, association. So that's the concrete notation. So a use case can be connected to an actor with an association. And the meta model looks like this. So again, it's a Uml class diagram. It's a class diagram. And we have specified that an actor is a connectable element and a use case is a connectable element. So it's a generalization or inheritance link. And every connectable elements can be connected with an association. The association has 2 properties, one source and a target. So the association itself knows its source and its target. Again, this is the instantiation. So this is the data behind our model, the graphical notation. So this together, this is the model actually. Yeah, so this is the model here. But this is just the concrete notation. So here we are in our Enterprise Architect model, we are dealing with this. But behind the scene, this is our structured data. This is what we find in the project browser or as the meta information behind it. So, but it's not just the meta model and the model. We also have a meta-meta model, which is not that important for us. I just would like to introduce this because of the next slide and to get an idea how everything fits together. So we are modeling models in Enterprise Architect. And the model is an instantiation of the meta model. So here, the modeling language is defined. On top of this, we have another, so something called meta-meta model. Yeah, it's again just a model like this. It's a class diagram which defines how to model modeling languages. When it comes to Enterprise Architect, we don't care about this because we mainly are focused here on models and meta models, or more concrete at Uml profiles, what we will see in the next step. But this is actually the language stack what OMG has defined. So we have 3 layers or 4 layers starting with 0. So this is the reality we would like to describe. So we are modeling to describe information about the reality. We do this with our models. The model is on level M1. On M2, we have the modeling language. It's the meta model, so it's here. On M2, we have a language like UML. We have a language like the Common Warehouse Model, another language from OMG. Both languages are based on the meta object facility. So that's the meta-meta model. And the meta-meta model is described in its own. By the way, the meta object facility is just a subset of the UML class diagram. So that's the reason why we see here always classes. So here, this is a class diagram. It's actually the M2 level. Yeah. So the meta model is on M2, but also the M3 level is the UML class diagram. So we use the UML class diagram to model a language UML, which consists of a UML class diagram, which we can use on M1. Never mind the M3 layer. The most important part is to know that in UML, we have 14 diagrams. 13, you may know, it's the UML class diagram, the activity diagram, the state machine, the sequence diagram, the component diagram, and many others. And the 14th diagram is the Uml Profile. And we can also use the profile model on M1. So we can model a profile in M1. I can model my profile, but I can also model other modeling languages like SysML 1 dot something, yeah, 5.6, 6 is the latest, is based on UML. It's a UML profile. And this is how it is implemented also in Enterprise Architect. So how is the profile mechanism, or how does the profile mechanism look like? So I have to go back and jump into the UML profile. Again, on M2, so it's the meta model of the UML profile. It's a simple representation. So in the UML specification, it's much more complicated. But this is, yeah, the distilled version of it. So to get just the idea, we have a profile, which is a package. What we see here, when we do it in Enterprise Architect, we see this is a profile package. Within the profile package, we have stereotypes, and the stereotype is nothing else. It's a class. So that's a class. Yeah, in Enterprise Architect, the class has, again, a stereotype. So we use already a profile to model profiles in Enterprise Architect. So we have a class called metaclass, and we have a class called stereotype. So the stereotype, okay, what I'm missing here is that the stereotype is extending a metaclass. Yeah, and the class has properties, which are the owned attributes, which are the attributes here, and the attribute itself becomes the tag value. So what we can do with a UML profile, so we define a namespace. So this is my profile. I define a stereotype, my actor, which can be applied to a UML actor element. So the UML actor gets a stereotype, my actor. And in addition to the properties an actor has from the language UML or from Enterprise Architect, the standard properties every element has, we can get an additional property. So, okay, so that's the profile mechanism. And now how the meta model and the UML profile fit together. So here on the right-hand side, we have a simple meta model. Remember the first one from above? So we have the company and we have the person. We see a person is employed at a company. So a person can be employed at 0, unfortunately. So there are also unemployed persons or multiple companies. And a company at least has one employee or infinite number of employees, but at least one company has one CEO, which is also part of this of the employees. It's a subset of it. And a person, can also be managing director of 0 or infinite companies. So I can be also the managing director of multiple companies. So this is, and here I have introduced an abstract meta class or abstract class actually, because here we are doing meta modeling. This is a typical way. So if you look at the UML specification, you see a lot of these meta abstract classes, which are just used to inherit something. Like the company has a name and the person has a name. So we move it up into an abstract class and say, okay, this is a named element, this is a named element. So because company has a name and the person has a name, all of them are named elements, and this is what they can do or have. But we cannot, of course, we can model this class diagram in Enterprise Architect, but we cannot load this model as a meta model into Enterprise Architect. We have to transform it into a UML profile. And in this transformation process, we have to decide what a company should be based on, what a person should be based on, and how we would like to have this employed at and managing director references. So the UML profile may look like this. So I have a stereotype company, I have a stereotype person. By the way, I think I missed here the, no, it's working here with the named element. So company stereotype is a named element stereotype. It's also abstract. And then we have here the extension relation to class. So company and person is a class. And the managing director and employed at is an association. So I have decided to use, similar to this here, a link to express this employed at relation, because I would like to see it graphically. But it's not necessarily the case that I have to do this way. I could also say that a person has a tag value referencing a company. So it's not a graphical link, it's just a property of person. So it's another way to create this, or to create this context in my data. Okay, so this is the transformation process. And in addition to just the meta classes or the stereotypes, we have additional rules, because the employed at connector should only be used between person and a company. And this is something we can do in Enterprise Architect with a simple meta model constraints. So now extending this this meta model, or this UML profile with meta model constraints. It's like this. So this magenta colored dependency with a stereotype meta constraint and additional tagged value allows us to specify constraints or rules, yeah, so that the association with the stereotype managing director may only be drawn and valid from a person as a source to a company as target. And the same for employee ad. Okay, so next, or is there something else? There's another one. So here, the meta model is transformed into the Uml profile. We move this up to the M2 level. How to do this in Enterprise Architect? Just load it into Enterprise Architect as a Uml profile, or put it into an MDG technology, load it, and then we can use it. And the model on M1 may look like this. And what we get from this already, we get automatic quick links because of the meta constraints and automatic validation based on the meta constraints. So there are also special meta classes, but I will come back to this a little later. And I'm just looking at the clock. The plan is to have 2 breaks, 10 minutes breaks after each hour. And I'm just thinking about if we should have the break now, because next topic here is the hands-on topic. We will try to model now this company MDG technology and see how far we can go and how we can extend it, like with Scriptlets already. Yeah, so we are jumping to this topic as well. Before we consider the process I've mentioned here in a bigger MDG technology. So maybe I just start with it, and then at 12 at noon we will have a 10 minutes break. So here I would like to, yeah, here this is an extended version of the company language. Yeah, I have this model already in an example, so I will quickly open this project. But I will just use it as a cheat sheet and really walk you through this process, how to do this. So here we have already this meta model. In the next topic, when we talk about the whole process, we start building this kind of meta model, or at least kind of domain model. Okay. So here we are. Good. So I just use this as my cheat sheet. And now I create a new project. So I'm using Enterprise Architect 64-bit here. I choose QEAX just to be able to use the project also in a team environment. QEA can only be opened once. QEAX can be opened multiple times at the same time. So I will put it on my desktop and say company MDG example. Or no, I will create a folder first. So this is the recommended way. When you create an MDG technology, create a folder, put everything in this folder, then you have it closer together. So here I create my project. And now I have to create the model structure. And there's an easy way to do this. You may know that in Enterprise Architect, we have perspectives. We can change them here. And I would like to switch to the category Management and MDG Technology Builder. This opens up the model wizard, which is now integrated in the start page, and brings up two templates, one with an example and one empty. So I will start with the example because here I have already my toolbox pages and everything linked together. I just have to rename it. So this is the structure I will get. I quickly add it to my model. Yeah, I call this my company language. By the way, this you can also do on your own if you have your own language and you have your own templates, you can also incorporate these templates in your model, also asking for different terms, and the model gets updated. Currently, you can just do this with an add-in, but it's possible. So now we have our structure. So I will go to my cheat sheet in the other project, and so here I'm starting working on my language. So if I'm jumping back to the other, so here we are. I need to go, no. Okay, I quickly copy this, Control C, into my project to have an idea what we need. Image from clipboard. So here I have my actual meta model, and what do we need? So we need a person, a company, and a university, and a project. Everything should be, so I get rid of this one, so I delete it. Everything should be based on classes. So we add stereotypes. So here I'm adding the stereotype university. I'm adding the stereotype company, and so open my cheat sheet again to do it the same way. So I can also click on Control left mouse in order to create same element again. Company, university, person. Or I can also just drag and drop with Control mouse pressed. So this makes a copy of it. Project. Good. So now I need to link this to the meta class with an extend relation. Unfortunately here, the extend relation is not part of my quick link. Why? It is here in the toolbox, and here it says filter to toolbox. If I use from the toolbox, I get, oh, it's working. Oh, interesting. Thought it will rise an error, but the problem here is the built-in example, the meta class from the built-in example is in a different namespace. So here, if you look at the stereotype, it's a stereotype from the non-profile. So the stereotype which are available in Enterprise Architect. If I remove this and go to UML standard profile and use the meta class from the namespace UML standard profile, yeah, here nothing has been changed, but here in the property window you see that, okay, that's the meta class from this profile. And now Also, the quick link shows me this connector. So, and I like to separate my stereotypes from the meta classes by color. So I changed the color of the meta class to yellow. Yeah, so it's just best practice I do. So pretty straightforward. Then I need to have different connectors. I need to have a connector employed at, managing director, part of connector. And remember, it's not necessary to do this as a connector. We could also do it just with tag values, referencing something like a person can reference the company with a tag value connector. So that means the person will get a tag value, which allows me to store a company. And based on the tag value type, I can also store multiple companies. But I would like to use a connector instead. So I have to decide which connector I would like to use. And I decide to use core connectors, the association as the connector. And if I create the meta class from the toolbox, it has the proper stereotype. So good. So I'm creating another stereotype and say this is the part of stereotype. So here, part of. It is extending the connector extension. So, and then I have two other, like director of and employed at. Employed at. So all stereotypes are applied to this. So it's pretty straightforward. So, and this is the way how we do this translation from the actual meta model, but we can also treat this as a domain model. So in the next example, in the other example, we don't have a dedicated meta model. We just have a domain model for our questions. And yeah, I will show you a little bit a different way to do these transformations. So, and then I would like to have this meta model constraints and how to. So I just clean up a little bit here. So I would like to say that a person has an employee relation to company. So there's the employed at relation between company and person. So between person, I create a meta constraint, and company, another meta constraint. So good, and this one. And now I have to decide what should be the source and what should be the target. We can do this in the properties or in the additional property, which comes from the meta constraint stereotype. So you see the application of the Uml profile already when we create a Uml profile. So it's kind of bootstrapping. This is a tag value from the Uml profile. So what I have to write here, you will find in the help. I have another topic where I jump into the help file. Just yeah, I just write what I need here. Person should be the source, and the company should be the target. So the link employed at should originate from person and target at the company. Target. I could also write, this is the client and this is the supplier. Yeah. So I can also use the terms from the UML specification. It's up to you. So, but these are just synonyms. Good. First constraint. Okay, now we have already noon. I would suggest to stop here for 10 minutes. And I have also a timer. I will start a timer. I will run everything. I will shut down turn off the micro and the video, but stay in the stream. And yeah, you can fill up your cup of coffee, tea, whatever. I will do the same, and we will meet us again back in 10 minutes. Okay. Well, 10 minutes are over. I will continue, and I would like to answer a few of the questions. One question is the content of the presentation good as well for Archimate participation practitioners? Yes, of course. The modeling language or the domain doesn't matter. What I tell you here, you can use for model-based software engineering, for model-based systems engineering, or for enterprise architecture management. Because in all these three domains, maybe you would like to tailor the languages you're using, like Archimate, which is another question. Can you compare SysML and URF from OMG and Archimate from Open Group? Oh, well, yeah, there are different languages for different purpose, like the SysML is the systems modeling language, which is currently a UML profile, mainly focused for model-based systems engineering. URF, the Unified Architecture Framework, is a kind of enterprise architecture modeling framework, a dedicated language, and as well as Archimate itself is also an enterprise architecture modeling language. With a also kind of framework with a method behind. Yeah, it depends what you would like to use. Actually, you can also use SysML for modeling your enterprise architecture, but it depends on the audience what they would like to see or use. Another question. Do you know of companies using DevOps and modeling? Yes, of course. A good address for this is Daniel Siegel, who is who gave already a talk or will give a talk today as well. He talked already about DevOps. This is also something. So yeah, DevOps itself is also a big topic, and it depends on what you would like to or which corner of DevOps you're interested in. But definitely yes. About the meta model example, I think it is about a class diagram versus an object diagram. Yes, maybe I show you a few other slides, or you can also have a look at the whole presentation about meta models. It is always about type instance. Yeah, so it's a matter of point of view. So if I'm starting here on this level, on my model level, the meta model is the type level and the model is my instance level. If I change my point of view and say, okay, I'm looking at the meta model becomes my model. And actually the meta model is the meta model of my meta model. Yeah, that's the reason why it's called meta model. Again, here we have a type instance relation. So here we have a kind of class diagram, and here we could have, so here an object diagram, but it is not how it works. This is just to have an expression of this example. Here on this level, we're using already this language, and not part of so because this is another part of UML, the object diagram. But here actually we are on the on the, so let's go to this slide, on the MOF level. And if I use MOF, I have already the UML class diagram. So here the UML class diagram is defined as UML class diagram, yeah. And here I'm using the UML class diagram to define UML and the common warehouse model. And the UML class diagram just tells me the possible data I have, and then I have the concrete syntax. And actually we are working with the concrete syntax. And the instantiations of the meta model, yeah, here we are on an object, more or less object level, but this depends on the tool itself, how this is implemented. And this is not specified in the OMG specification how a tool should implement this, but the tool should behave like this, and the information stored here should be available somehow. Maybe this answers the question, or you can have a look at the talk in detail. Okay, so I will continue with this example. I started already here with the part of, so the part of relation has as a target always the project, yeah, and as a source, and this is also something special here. So the source can be the person. So here I create another relation. It's the wrong one. Not meta relation. I need to have a meta constraint. Meta constraint. So this is the source, and I don't have to specify tuples. So I don't have to specify a tuple for this, and for this. It's okay if I just say the part of relation is always targeting to the project, and the source could be person, company, or university. Yeah. So this is a benefit and a drawback. Drawback is if I would like to have these possible combinations, there is currently no workaround. Yeah. The only workaround is to have another connector. So again, this is the source. And here I have another source. Meta constraint. And I think for this example, we are already more or less finished with our meta constraints. Not really. So I have a few, but now we would like to test this already. Yeah, and there's an easy way to test a Uml profile. The complete way is to select the profile. First create the diagram profile as well, which is already here. So I have a diagram which is called ecosystem, which is bound to the Toolbox my company language, which is in another profile. So we have 3 different profiles for the languages. And here this Toolbox consists currently of my animal. Yeah, it's called it. So that's the example which comes out of the box. I delete it. And in order to manipulate or create this diagram profiles and Toolbox profiles, Enterprise Architect has this profile helper. So it appears in the context menu when you select a stereotype. Yeah, so I can edit it with the profile helper. This is, for instance, one of the wizards I've mentioned. What also you can provide for your own modeling approach. So this helps me to create a more complicated model, because what's happening here, when I click on add new stereotype, I have to select from my profile package a stereotype like person. I say how the element should be listed in the toolbox. It should be named person. Yeah, that's it. Okay. An Enterprise Architect behind the scene creates an attribute with the following name, full qualified name with an initial value, person. We could also do this here if we know what to do and how to do it in the features window. Just write it. but this wizard allows me to do it easier, in an easier way. Yeah. And if you have your own modeling approach, your own specific language with your own specific properties, you can also add this kind of wizards. Currently, you need an add-in for this. Yeah? So here it's, but at least you can do it. So here we need, that's a project. I do not complete this example, just one connector as well, stereotype. So the part of connector, I call this part of. Okay, so to make the MDG technology, I have to generate all these profiles, but just for testing, there is a simpler way. I can select the profile package, go to the specialize ribbon, because here the specialize ribbon provides all the specializations of Enterprise Architect, all the extensions, like all add-ins which are installed. We have access to the scripting library, and here the technologies, here the list of loaded and available technologies. And here I can publish my technologies. And the easiest way to test your UML profile is to select the profile in the project browser and click on the last entry, import packages UML profile. This will generate the UML profile on the fly, puts it into an MDG technology and load it. But without the toolbox and the diagram profile, only the UML profile. So that's it. Done. And now you see in the resource window in the MDG technologies that within the model, we have loaded my company language, the UML profile with all the content. In order to see it here, I need to change the perspective. I have no dedicated perspective for my language so far. We will do it. But the simplest way to get customized, specialized MDG technologies is go to specialized category. You can go to all, then you get all the technologies loaded by an add-in. All the technologies are here, all the add-in loaded, all the technologies dynamically loaded, and all technologies loaded within the model. I will just see loaded technologies in the model. So now I have my company language. Yeah, and here we are. So I have the company. I can create a company. This is how the company looks like. I can create a project. Okay, and because of the meta model constraints, project and company, we will see what we have here. I have a part of relation, and I have a part of relation the other way around. Yeah, if I say a project is part of the company, you see that the connector is drawn in the other way around. The company is the source because we have defined it here. Company is the source. Yeah, it's always the case. So this is how the meta model constraints helps us. But here we have now a few topics we have to cope with. Like in the traceability view, I just see, okay, project has an association from company. And company has an association too, which is true, yes, but actually it is a part of relation. So how to cope with this? I can give now the stereotype also with the profile helper a meta type. So then it's not called association anymore, it's called part of, or whatever I write here, part of, yeah? So I get a special attribute, meta type, part of. Now I would like to test it again, so I quickly go to profile and say import, generate an import. So finished, should be imported. Now let's see. Meta type part of. So yeah, if I select the Okay, let's create it. Let's create a new one. Maybe we have to resync the existing one so it's easier. Okay, I'm wondering. Yeah, that's a drawback from a live session. We have to take care about all the issues. But I have my cheat sheet here. I can quickly go to the cheat sheet. So that's the complete model or the complete example. Let's see here. I have a test model as well. So let's jump to this. And here I have the part of relation. Okay. Now it seems that, yeah, the meta type is not listed here. Because if we have a meta type for the elements, you see the type of this element is person, because we have the meta type for the stereotype. But if we have a meta type for the relation, currently Enterprise Architect do not show this meta type as the type. Yeah, but it is contained within the API. If we call meta type, we get what's inside here. But so I'm jumping back to our example. So there's nothing wrong so far. But in the traceability window, I still see association to, as I say, association from. And this is also something we can cope with. So there is another special attribute we have to apply to meta classes. We can say, I would like to define the meaning forward and the meaning backward of an association. And that's the reason why here I have just one meta class for all of the three stereotypes. And here in the complete example, I have separated this. I have 3 times the meta class association. So I can, that is it's easy. Can just create a new meta class connector association to create a new meta class of type association, because I extend this meta class with additional properties, meaning forward, meaning backward. So unfortunately, there is currently, but hopefully in future versions we will see also the possibility to configure it here. Currently, we have to type it manually, but the help page tells us all the specific attributes we can use for stereotypes and meta classes. How to figure it out. So we just go to the Sparx.com page, and here we are searching for specific attributes or special attributes, or I can also, that's the easiest way, I'm looking for this specific attribute, and then I'm automatically point to the special attribute. So if I'm searching for special attributes, I'm coming to this page, and here we have special attributes for the stereotype. Yeah, scriptlets we will see in a few minutes, and meta classes. And here are the specific attributes for meta classes. So if I add this meaning forward and meaning backward for these different connectors, the traceability window, I show you directly here to just save time, will show me now that if I click on a person, the person is part of the project, and the project contains the person. Yeah, so we have to find, here, part of and contains, reading backwards. And here, forward is employs and is employed at, as director, director of. So this allows me easily to so here company has director and the person is part of this project, is director of this company and is employed at this company. Yeah. So here I get the full semantic or easy or the connectors or the content, the context is easily readable now with this simple trick. But we still have an issue, because if I create here a connector, I have, in addition to part of, I have abstraction, dependency, information flow, realization, trace, whatever. And if I remove filter to toolbox, because here I only get what's in my current toolbox. If I release filter to toolbox, I get even more. Yeah. So I have added parts to Enterprise Architect, so new language features, but I still have everything left. So this is what I've meant in, where is, so it's closed already. I reopen it. The summit, good. But how to cope with this? There's another special attribute you can find in this list here of special meta class attributes. It's on top. So it's let's search for UML. So here it is, hide UML links. If you use this attribute and with a value true, what I did in my other example here, I've added for the meta class hide UML links, which means my person, university, company, and project only use or provide the connectors I have added in my profile. So if I go to my test example here, so if I create a new person and a new company and use the quick link, I only get the connectors which are provided. There is a trick how to do this with toolboxes as well, because here I say filter to toolbox. And you saw in the previous example that, yeah, the quick link also was reduced. But if I remove filter to quick link, I still get only the connectors I have defined. And with these two possibilities, I reached already my goal, more or less, yeah, or at least 80% of it. So what I've mentioned here in the, I think it was here in the Uml Profile. No. Oh no, I know it was here. Yeah, yeah. So not just extend it and get everything what UML system or whatever all the languages provide out of the box. I can also get rid of them. Yeah. So I just see what I would like to see. So it's much easier for the modeler to create this model, because I cannot choose the wrong connector anymore. So going back to it's in here. So if I go back to the meta model, you see that I have additional constraints. Yeah, so the meta model itself, or the UML, actually the meta model allows me to add constraints, like a university or a person can be part of 0 or a maximum 3 projects, or a person can be the managing director of a company, and a company can has a maximum 1 person as the managing director. So these are constraints. This is how I can, or how I can or combine these different concepts here, company and person, in order to have a valid representation of what is defined in the schema. Unfortunately, Enterprise Architect currently do not support this multiplicity constraints, even if we put this into the UML profile. But maybe we will see it in a future version. But there are other constraints, like if more than 1 person are part of the project, at least 1 company and university must be part of the project as well. This cannot be expressed with pure meta modeling constraints. We have to specify it in a different way. And the language UML came up with OCL, the object constraint language, which allows us to specify something like queries which acts as a constraint in order to add this constraint. So if you read the UML specification or other specifications based on the OMG, you can read a lot of these constraints. And since Enterprise Architect 16, we have the possibility to use, so let's go back here, we can use scriptlets. So I'm jumping to this topic. So we can use scriptlets in order to get automations very easily, into Enterprise Architect. We can, of course, use the Enterprise Architect API with an add-in since decades in order to add this kind of constraints or model validations. But with a scriptlet, we get a really easy way to do this. And here I showcased how we can implement this kind of constraints. But first, I would like to introduce the scriptlet in general, how it works and what we should consider when we use it. So still loading. So here we are. In general, how do scriptlets work? So this is a kind of domain model about Enterprise Architect. So that's the client tool, Enterprise Architect. That's the repository. So that's the database, more or less. Yeah, correct. So we can have add-ins. An add-in is something we can write in C#, Delphi, Visual Basic, or any language which supports COM. With an add-in, we can react on Enterprise Architect events, and there are a lot of them. And in Enterprise Architect 16, we've got a few new ones. This is the third part of my presentation. I would like to go into more details about this additional events. So here we have an add-in which lives in Enterprise Architect. So Enterprise Architect will load this additional add-in as a DLL, and this is using this automation interface. In addition to that, we can use within Enterprise Architect, and this is stored in the. I'm not sure. I think the script also is stored at the local machine. So this is actually here. I have to adopt it. But the model add-in, it's a model which also acts as an add-in and can react on events. This is contained in the repository as well as the scriptlet. And here we would like to talk about scriptlets. So the scriptlet itself can react on 2 events currently. Maybe in future versions, let's see, maybe we can configure the scriptlets to react on different events. This would be another benefit, but currently it's working on a diagram reloaded or an open diagram. It's part of the model, and I can use this scriptlet within a diagram. So I just drag and drop it into a diagram, and when the diagram is opened or reloaded, the scriptlet is executed and is doing whatever is defined in the script. So now I will jump back to EA Summit presentation. So this is what's happening here. Here I have a scriptlet. So mark diagram. So mark diagram as discussed. Don't mind this one. So this is was an experiment. So here I just get the current diagram. Then I get the parent element of the current diagram, yeah, and then I set the alias name to discussed and store this, yeah, and then I'll write something into the output window. This is what you saw here, yeah, will be discussed. So this happens if so this element, which is part of the model, is dropped into a diagram. And here somewhere there is this scriptlet. Oh no, it's not here. It's in the element below. Yeah, so here, that's the scriptlet. And remember, as I started my talk, I opened a diagram, and when I got back, it was not colored, because what's working, if I open a diagram, script that is executed, get the current diagram, get the container of this diagram, and the container of the diagram is this topic element. And then the alias name will be set to be discussed, or yeah, set the value discussed. And I have used here a diagram legend with a configuration to apply the color, the fill color and the line color if the element alias is discussed. Yeah, so this automatically colors my diagram. But this scriptlet is executed when the diagram is opened or reloaded. And if the diagram is already opened, I'll show you. So here the diagram is opened. Yeah, if I remove the alias, so it's not colored anymore, and if I double click on it and go back, it's not colored because the diagram is already opened. So the scriptlet is not executed when I double click on it. But if I reload this diagram, scriptlet gets executed, and now it's colored again. So this is what's happening with scriptlet and the 2 events. And this is how we can use scriptlets within a diagram. But we can also incorporate a scriptlet within a stereotype with a specific attribute underlined scriptlet. And then the scriptlet is executed whenever the stereotype is applied on an element within a diagram, when the diagram is opened or reloaded. And we can use this for model validations. So for those who know or saw already my meta-modeling talk, I have mentioned the possibility to add source code or C# source code, extended C# source code into stereotypes and compile it on the fly and execute it in model validation. So this is one possibility to get it also in the validation framework. But with Scriptlets, we have another way to easily get executed code into our modeling language. And as a showcase, I have, it's here. So I show you another example. So it's another MDG technology in this project with two stereotypes with shape script. So this is animal and animal 2. And shape script, Scriptlets are a really cool feature, but you have to take care what you're doing within the Scriptlet, because here within the Scriptlet, for instance, I just get the element which has the stereotype animal 2, and I check if this element has a connector, doesn't matter which one. And if there is no connector, I set a color. I set the appearance of this element and update it, store it. If there is a connector, I remove the color. Yeah, so it works like this in animal 2. So here, for instance, if I delete this connector, so Scriptlet is only executed when I reload or open the diagram. So if I reload it, elements get colored. If I create the link, doesn't matter which one. If I reload the diagram, color disappears. So for instance, if I'm using now a model color, so I color this element by intention, delete the connector, reload the diagram, so it gets yellow, and so add the connector again, and as you may guess, the color disappeared because I overwrite the color, and the Scriptlet didn't remember this color because it's a script. There's no state of the script. Would be really complicated. Yeah, maybe there could be a way to that so that the Scriptlet is writing something, some information of this model element somewhere. But maybe a better, if you have this kind of use case, a better solution is what you saw already in my EA Summit example. I'm using this legend to color something. So here I have another color. If I delete the connector, reload, so everything gets colored. But if I create the connector again, I do not lose this color because in the second Scriptlet, I don't overwrite the color, I just write meta information. Here I'm using the alias name. Of course, this is also could be critical because if someone writes something in the alias name, it will be overwritten. But the better approach would be to add a dedicated tag value, which is used to express this issue or write somewhere else this property. So this is how the Scriptlets work within stereotypes. So the Scriptlet is now contained within the project, within the modeling language actually. So okay, now let's go to this example because here I have already implemented as a Scriptlet this kind of validation. So here, for instance, I delete this one. I delete the color. So here I'll reset the color. And here I have two persons which are part of the project. And remember this, this additional constraint. If more than one person is part of the project, at least one company and one university must be part of the project as well. Otherwise, there is an issue. Okay, so here we have an issue. And here I have another rule. So if a person is a director of a company, it makes no sense to have a second director of company to the same company. Yeah. So this is an issue, this is an issue. So if I reload the diagram, the scriptlet analyzes the model and marks the elements already as an issue. So this is a duplicated connector, so we don't need this. And here is another issue. It is based on scriptlets, which are part of my modeling language. So here the scriptlet is already a bit bigger. So here again, I'm just checking the connectors, but here I'm checking a specific type, and here I'm querying the meta type. Yeah, and even if for the connector the type property do not show the meta type, I can get the meta type what is defined in the language. Of course, you can also check the type and the serial type in order to get it. Then you can also query the full qualified stereotype to get the profile name as well. And here I'm coloring the element and write duplicate and update. Of course, removing the color is not implemented here, so it's just a showcase. And again, it's coloring. Yeah, so maybe it's better to use the legend for it. And here the scriptlet, the project scriptlet, it's a much bigger implementation. Yeah, much more code because we have to count all the connectors and actually this here is the actual rule. Yeah. So if the person count is bigger than 1 and the university count is small or equal 1, then there is an issue and then we color it. Yeah. This is just the code we need to get all the information, and that's the actual rule. Yeah, and this is how we can use scriptlets already for our model validation. It has benefits and drawbacks, of course, because here we can easily color the diagram, and it's easily to integrate into our MDG technology. But the drawback is this is not fired if the model validation is started. So if I'm start model validation, it will not be recognized, yeah, because it has nothing to do with this. Okay, so here I've validated the wrong. Oops, sorry. Package. So yeah, 0 warnings, 0 issues. If the scriptlet may also be able to be configured to react on validation events, then we could also use the scriptlets for validation. If we can write something into the output window, then it's even better. Currently, we can do this already with an add-in. Yeah, if you write an add-in and if you implement it, and remember this the other talk, meta modeling part 1, I showed this showcase, or just as a presentation about this added meta model constraint, which is integrated in the model validation framework. But let's see what Sparx Australia provides in the next versions of Enterprise IDEC. Every version brings new platform features. Okay, so then I will jump back to the overall agenda and come now to this presentation here. This is actually the implementation of what we saw here. Again, we have 6 minutes left for the next break. Maybe we we make the next break 5 minutes past 1 to find the spot where the break fits best. So I've separated this in another project. And what we saw in the first presentation, this process, expert workshop, collect the questions, create a reference model, do the stress test. I have a showcase here, and I will run you through this through these steps to see how this process can be implemented in the real world. Again, it's just a toy example, but it's much bigger than the company example. And here I've also used a lot of I've missed one thing in this person example. We have added a lot of meta model constraints. We have also, because here I finished the whole MDG technology also with a toolbox profile. So I have 2 toolboxes with the elements and with the connectors. And so if I'm switching again to change perspective to the specialized, which are loaded into the model, I get my language, and here I have my 2 toolboxes, company, person, university, and the connectors. Yeah. What I'm missing here is, so the last part is actually, I can create my own perspective, which I can do in Start Perspectives. So these are the system perspectives and the categories we have. So we could also configure what is visible here. So in order to really make it simple for our modelers, we could disable all of these categories. Just create my own perspective. Pretty simple. Just click here, new, say my other company language, and this is now important. If you take this checkbox to strict, then you're able to add MDG technologies you would like to see in your perspective. Like I would like to have Uml. So if you use something from Uml, you have to take Uml Basic, and for instance, you would like to use something from activity diagrams, but not everything. And then I would like to use my company language. Okay, yeah. So that's it. And now I can click on restrict. And here I see Uml, I see company language, and I see common. And here, for instance, I will use everything from my language, the elements. So here I see the elements. For instance, I could now create 1, 2 perspectives, which are just restricted. Like here, I would like to see only person and company, and only the employed and director of relation. And I just have one connector, and here are the linking rules. So these are the rules how elements can be linked. By the way, this is a list view which can be configured. I would suggest to enable the toggle filter bar to filter and the group bar, because then I can also group by link type. This is important if it comes to the common relations, because here I have all the common elements I have in Enterprise Architect which are not part of a modeling language, like a change or an issue or Enterprise Architect discussions, diagram legend, diagram notes, whatever. I say I would like to use nothing except boundary, text, hyperlink. That's it. As a relationship, I will use nothing except the trace link. And here are the linking rules. And here you see that this will be a huge list. Maybe in future versions this can be optimized because I have restricted already the elements into relationships. Actually, I just need to see what's from my point of view for all the elements which are available, because I just have the boundary hyperlinked text, and here in the relationships I just need to see relations of these elements. But if this is loaded, still loading, I guess, I will get a huge list, and then I can again activate here. Then yeah, you see this is the result, and you can say I do not allow to combine these elements. And then Enterprise Architect has a rule: if you use the quick link and the connector is still in the quick link, you get an error message, and Enterprise Architect do not allow to create this connector. And even here in UML, I can now say, okay, from activity diagrams, I just allow to model activities, actions, and the control flow, if we find it, activity final and so on. Yeah, it's the relationship, it's the control flow. And here you see control flow. So, okay, should be done this way, disable everything and only enable the control flow. So this is why we need the filter and the grouping. Okay, so this is my specification and my restrictions. My other language, and here I have, yeah, save it. Yeah, and here I have similar things but different configuration. And now I can switch my perspective because I have disabled everything. So I just see personal and model-based set. In person, I have my company language and my other company language. So if I'm switching to my company language, I see already my ecosystem, I have less elements because I've removed the university and the project. So I'm just allowed to model this. Yeah. But if I'm switching to my company language, I get everything. Yeah. And there is nothing else I can do. Yeah, of course, I have here, for instance, Toolbox for standard, because I have selected the trace, the dependency. So that's my company. In my other language, I have less. Here I've selected nodes, text, hyperlinks, whatever. Yeah, so with the perspective and with the restricted perspective, again, we have another possibility to restrict the possibilities what Enterprise Architect provides to what my modelers need. Yeah, so I reduce the complexity, and then Enterprise Architect only allows me to do what the clients or the modelers really need to do. So, okay, nothing else open, so I need to. Okay, this is this project. I need to go to the summit here. Remember, we are again closer to this right part here. So now, yeah, now we can have another 10 minutes break, I would suggest, before we dig into the details. Just to give you a brief overview, then I will start my timer. So here I would like to run through this process, especially collect questions, create reference model, and stress test. Everything is prepared, so I will not do the hands-on. I just explain how to do something and why to do something. So within this diagram, you see all the references. So we will run through the questions, like in the stakeholders provide me these questions, or I had stakeholder interviews and they gave me these questions. And from these questions, I can start creating the sketch reference model, or I can have an intermediate step. So here, from the questions, I can create a domain model first. It's not the meta model, because I don't know exactly how the meta model should look like, but I just want to to get a better understanding of the domain. Because here, if we run through these questions, you will easily figure out, if you draw the domain model, that something is missing or there are more questions which are not covered by these questions here, part of the process. And then we developed the MLG technology, the enterprise configurations with the perspectives, for instance, and then we can also use some automations. And here I would like to address some of the additional quick link or enterprise architect events, enterprise architect rule events, to have influence into the context menus of enterprise architect to show or hide entries. We will address this in 10 minutes, so we'll have the second break for 10 minutes. I start my timer, and in 10 minutes we will continue. Okay, let's continue and run through a few of the questions. One question is, for instance, do you need to publish it again after adding meta type? Yes. So if I modify the Uml profile, I have to republish it. And if I do it this way with this import packages Uml profile, when I select that profile, that's the easiest way. Yeah. So it's a recommended way to test the profile. You don't have the diagram profile, you don't have the toolbox profile, but you can check the Uml profile itself and its behavior. You mentioned OCL. Is there any support for this in Enterprise Architect? Well, kind of. If you open an Enterprise Architect element or the properties of this element, yeah, where's the property window? So here we have constraints, and here we can select OCL to write my constraint. Yeah, here I can write OCL. Yeah, but this OCL will not be applied. It's just the OCL syntax, and if I save it, Enterprise Architect, if it is selected for validation, Enterprise Architect will validate the OCL syntax, but not apply the OCL to the model. So that's the support in Enterprise Architect. In the second presentation, so the meta model, I've mentioned something which is available. It is an extension to Enterprise Architect. It's a plugin where you can do something like this. Like here, but it's just currently it's a preview of this assistant. But here you have the possibility to it's the same example more or less for the project. I have added, so as a constraint, as an OCL constraint, or here it is, code. Yeah, and this is code which is more OCL like. So what's behind is that there's a utility API which is based on the Enterprise Architect API. So it extends the Enterprise Architect API with additional operations like self is the object which comes into this function, like the element in the scriptlet. And here I have the operation connector with type, and then I can state the type it's part of. So it's the meta type which is checked here to type person and then count. Yeah. So here, if there is a connector part of to person and check how many it is, and if the amount is bigger than 1, this implies, so this is the logical operation of OCL, that also this constraint and the other must be true. So connector to part of to type university count must be bigger than 1 or equal 1. And connector part of to company must be bigger or equal 1. So there is currently no editor to write this code, so you have to know how to write it. So that's the limitations. But if you did this, you can select the package, and yeah, this is the extension, yeah. And within this extension, we can generate the validation rules. And here, yeah, you will see compilation was successful and the rules are loaded. And this is now incorporated into the validation framework of Enterprise Architect. So if I go to the validation, configure the rules. So here we have 2 additional rule sets, what the add-in provides. There are additional built-in rules and the dynamically rules loaded from the profile. So if I run now the example, validate this example, you see that, yeah, that's the text we stated here as a constraint. If more than 1 person is part of the project, if I double click, I'll see, okay, here I have an issue. And if I create here the connector, so here I didn't have this additional, so let's check. Perspective, specialized model. So here we are part of. Okay, so if I run the validation again, then I should not get this error again. So this is currently the only way I know for this. Now there is another add-in from Ian Mitchell. Maybe he mentioned this in his previous talk, Model Expert, which also provides kind of model validation framework. It's an extension to what we get out of the box from Enterprise Architect. Okay, can we use scriptlets to create overlays, overlay objects with color based on legend to show multiple overlays such as CMM risk and so on? I'm not sure. I guess it's not possible, but there is another possibility I will show in a minute. Maybe we can cope with this, or we can cope this with the additional EIA rules. Good reference for script API. Yeah, the reference. I will come to this here to show you all the resources about scriptlets in the API. And what is required to have access to become user of the training platform, access EA training. Yeah, you just write us an email and order something, then you get access to it. Okay, now let's run through this example here. So we start with the questions. So we run through this process. I've got the following questions in interviews from stakeholders which would like to go with a model-based approach. Yeah. So again, this example is more systems engineering related, but it's the same for software or for Enterprise Architect management. Yeah, just the used questions are different, or the languages we are using is different. So again, we know these questions already. What signals do we have? What modules do we have? Which module is receiving a signal? In which hardware is the module realized? How much data can the hardware send or receive? Which hardware sends or receives a signal? What is the maximum traffic the connection supports? So we could use now these questions just to start with the reference model. And then we could end up with additional questions when we model the reference model, or I can start first with a kind of domain model. Yeah, I did this already. And based on the domain model, I can derive already additional questions. I can ask the stakeholder. So what signals do we have? So I say, we have a signal. What modules do we have? We have a module. Which module sends, receives a signal? So module is sending and receiving a signal. In which hardware the module is realized? Okay, we have hardware. And we have some relations which says hardware represents a module. But there is nothing written that should it be a one-to-one relation? Is one module realized in one hardware? Is the hardware or can the module be realized in multiple hardwares, and one hardware can realize multiple modules? This can be easily figured out when we create this domain model. Yeah. Or which hardware sends, receives a signal? Hardware sends, receives physical data, or a signal. Yeah? What is the maximum traffic the connection supports? So we need something like a connection and maybe the speed of the connection. And in which hardware, so I think there is also a question like speed of the hardware. Yeah, so we can end up with this kind of domain model, but the domain model could also look different. But here we have something we can use for discussion with the stakeholders who would like to find this data in the model to answer these questions. Okay, and then we can, so first I will open another window, the diagram filter. I will apply a filter already. So, because if I open the sketch, so first it's faded, I will hide them. So, where is the domain model now? So, because I would like to have the domain model also visible. Okay, now I have this the sketch reference model. So the reference model is one possible model which allows me to put in the data to answer these questions. So I would like to have modules, and another module, and I would like to send to specify this sending and receiving. We know already from this presentation that maybe the information flow is a good way to do this, an easy way. So we have already this experience, but here I would like to use a stereotype class. I would not use just a class. I would like to have a dedicated module element. So I will add a stereotype. And here, instead of the information flow, I would like to use a signal flow, which is based on the information flow, which allows me only to select signals. So, and here, yeah, I have the hardware, and the relations between a module and the hardware is an abstraction link. So I will stay with the pure UML abstraction link. So this fits good, the semantic fits, yeah. What else? So here I have the hardware, I have the connection, so I'm using a connector. It should be a stereotype connector, and it should contain the speed. So I would like to have an additional property to my connectors to add the speed. And yeah, in the discussion, I figured out already that maybe it's a good idea to have ports as the points so not exactly what we see here in the domain model. Hardware has the speed, but the port has the speed, because maybe the hardware has different connection points with different speed. Yeah, it didn't come out from the question, but during modeling the reference model, and again, talking to the stakeholder, maybe you figure out. And then, of course, we could add additional questions, because this is important to also keep this information somewhere, add additional questions, and maybe extend the domain model, so that in 1 week, 1 month, you still know why you have decided to go this way or that way. And a possibility is also to just drag and drop this requirements or the questions. So I have modeled this as requirements, and link this requirements to the connectors to the model elements, which allows us to answer these questions. So this question, what is the hardware representing of the logical module? Yeah, it's can be answered by following the abstraction link between the hardware and the module. What is the maximum traffic of connections supported? Yeah, it's by this connector, which has an additional property, speed, and so on. So this is my reference model. And in the next step, so I'm closing this and that. We use the reference model to derive the meta, or the Uml profile. Yeah. Of course, I could also really model a meta model, because then I know exactly the information I would like to need. So I can extend the domain model and consider it as a meta model, and then I translate it into a Uml profile, or you can do it on the fly. So what I did, I specified the Uml profile. I say I would like to use signals. I would like to use an information flow, but call it signal flow. I would like to have a module, which is a class. I would like to have data, and I would like to reuse the flow property from SysML. And this is how we can do it. We can also extend existing modeling languages, like SysML, Archimate, BPMN, whatever. Yeah, and this is a part property. I have a technical signal, so this is this one here. I have a block technical signal, and the property is a flow property, which is the data. Yeah, and data has a size, and the block itself has technical signal, and the hardware is a block. Again, I'm reusing SysML. And then I have a port, which is the sender or receiver. Again, using this abstract stereotype just to keep my Uml profile simple, because this tag value is inherited. So tag values will be inherited. Shape scripts, if you add additional shapes, it's currently not inherited. So if you would like to use here and here the same shape, you have to add a shape property here and a shape property here. It's not possible to do it here and inherit it. And then we have the connection, which is a connector, also stereotype connection with speed. So that's the first step, and then we would like to add the meta constraints based on what we have defined here in the maybe domain model, or here in this, yeah, actually in the domain model, because here, this is the reference model. This is a concrete example. We cannot say that, okay, is it possible to have multiple hardwares? Of course, if we model it and say, okay, this, everything what is here is possible, nothing else, then we can treat this and as the closed world and try to derive all the constraints based on this. If I have just this, then there is a one-to-one relation. We know already the meta constraints. So we just create this these connectors here, and here it's the link to the help page. So in Enterprise, in the Sparx Systems page, in the help page, we have a complete description of the meta constraints. Like here, the meta relationship, meta constraint, what I really often use. And here the different properties or values we can use for the human role tag value. So like here, I can use source and target, but you can also use client and supplier instead, or and role and role one. So this is because of the Uml specification or the terms which are used in the Uml specification. And here we have a lot of other constraints we can add, like the conveyed constraint, what I have used here, that it only works for information flow, because an information flow has a conveyed item, and this conveyed item must be a signal for the signal flow. Again, source target is dedicated to a module. Then we have data, which is a flow property, and technical signal is a block. And here we have the owner and owned element relationship, which is described here. Owner and owned element, what does it mean? Why do we need two? Because each of the constraints has another impact. Data owner is the technical signal. So if I have a technical signal and right click on it and say child element, I will find data. And owned element is a constraint for model validation. If I have a technical signal or the data is owned by some other element, not a technical signal, this is a constraint violation. So the model validation framework will find it. Yeah, and that's the rest here. So I think I don't have some other, oh yeah, here type. So this is a port, and a port can get a classifier. To be precise, in the specification, the port has a property type. It's not a classifier, it's a property type. So that's the reason why we can also use type. But if you write here classifier, it will work as well. Okay, so that's the Uml profile with the metamodel constraints. Then I can add the diagram profiles. Within the diagram profiles, I have a logical and a hardware diagram. So this is pretty straightforward. Of course, in the Uml profile, I can do a lot of configurations and specify how the diagram should behave. Yeah. These are configurations you can manually set, but here you can preset it. And when you use this diagram, this will automatically be set. Like always show the nodes or use rectangle notation, whatever. I think it's configured. Rectangle notation is configurable by the stereotype itself. And then the toolbox profile. I have two toolbox profiles, one for logical diagrams and one for the hardware diagrams. So that's the pure toolbox. But in addition to the toolbox, I can add something called field specification. The field specification extends the stereotype of diagram type. So this is actually the stereotype from the diagram profile. If I jump into the project browser, you see that this is part of the diagram profile. And if I use, okay, it's not listed here, the extend relation, but if I'm drag and drop, is the correct one? Yes. You see that actually this is a logical diagram. That's the diagram type, and I extend the diagram type with a so-called field specification. And with the field specification, I can specify what should be in my toolbox and what should be allowed within the diagram. So this is another kind of meta model I'm able to do. I will show the result in a minute. Yeah, and that's it. So this is what we can specify in the profile. We generate the MDG technology and load it into the model. And this is how it looks and behaves. So here I have a package with my logical diagram. So that's the diagram type. This is the toolbox. So if I open it, I see that's the toolbox. So if I look it up, project browser, here we are. If I create a new one, again, it depends on the technology or the perspective I have enabled. And here it looks like that I have duplicated this MDG technology. So if I'm looking here, I have hardware, logical, and hardware has these two sub diagrams. So these are my field specifications. Yeah, and this is the logical diagram. Okay, this is a logical diagram. Within the logical diagram, I have modules, signals, and signal flows. So once again, if I have a module and another module, I get here my entries. If I filter to toolbox, I get already the restricted version, yeah, signal flow. And remember, if I add So here, okay, diagram is not open. Let's go to the Uml profile. If I'm adding here the module, this special property, underline hide UML types or something called like this, I will get rid of all the other entries from here. So I only see my signal flow, nothing else. Good. Enterprise Architect will automatically, because of the meta model constraint, restrict creating a signal flow between elements which are not. Oh, it's working. Okay, I think, yeah. Reason for this is I will delete it because in Enterprise Architect we can configure and start preferences to the tool-specific configurations. If Enterprise Architect should check the connector constraints, which I have disabled, in order to be able to create this on the first place. Otherwise, if this is enabled, you see there is no signal flow in the quick link, but in the toolbox. But if I use it in the toolbox, I get a constraint violation, so I cannot create it. But you know now the trick. If I disable it, I can create it and I can enable it again. But if I run the model validation, Enterprise Architect will automatically figure out that this is an issue, this connector. It appears 2 times because of the 2 ends, I guess. Yeah. So if I delete it, run the validation again, then my model is clean and valid. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and this just with the configuration. Good. For the hardware, I have a different toolbox. And here, let's consider also these subtypes. So if I look it up in the browser, I can add the subtypes. And the subtypes can also be configured just in the property window of the diagram, because it's just the applied meta model. If I have a diagram with subtypes, I can select it from here. It's my hardware model of my own type. If I click on this, I get a simplified toolbox. This is what we have specified in the view specification. Yeah, you can see default, I get everything, and this further reduce the toolbox. And okay, I will say the default. If I create here a signal payload element, which is not part of the other toolbox, and if I apply now my meta model and say filter to meta model, okay, you see that everything which is not part of it will be filtered based on the diagram filter, because I have configured here hide, it's hidden. Yeah, but if I say fade or grayscale, I still see it. Yeah, and this is not separately configurable. It's part of the diagram filter. So I see that these elements should actually not be visible in the diagram because of this specified subtype. Okay. Yeah, here it's the view specification and so on. And now we know already, we have very often talked about how to restrict it, but there is still something missing, and that's the last part. If I go to my hardware, so remove this filter, do not filter. Like here in the hardware, I can right click and say new child element. And here I get the receiver, the sender, and the flow property, because in the meta model, so here we are with the meta constraints. I have specified that hardware has the port sender and receiver has an owner, which is the hardware, and the owned element is sender. Because of this, I get, not here, I get these additional entries. But because I have derived this hardware from SysML, I also get the flow property. Because this is inherited, because I have a more specific block, which is a hardware, which inherits everything what a normal block, which is the flow property. If I would like to get rid of this, the same for new child diagrams, I can do it. But for doing this, so where we are, here we are. I'm jumping back here to this user interface events, the additional. So here we have two additional sets of events in Enterprise Architect 16, user interface rules and diagram appearance rules. So if you, sorry, so it was the double click on the diagram. So if you go to this, you can find it just looking for user interface rules. These are additional rules or the additional events which can be used in an add-in, and that's the other set. Yeah, like the diagram appearance rules. Here, for instance, I have the possibility to influence the shape scripts. So this rule or this callback function is called whenever I have a custom diagram type and elements in it. So maybe this answers the question from, is it possible with the scriptlets to have an overlay of the shape script? I don't think so, but with this, we have total control of all the shapes used in my diagrams. I can, on the fly, change any shape script, even from existing model elements. So my classes, my use cases get a completely different shape without a stereotype if I use them in my diagrams. So it's pretty powerful. Yeah, let's go to this. Here we have a lot of, here, these two append child elements and append child diagrams. These two callback functions are called if you right click and open this menu. So we have influence now. What should be listed here? I have a showcase for this, so I have implemented a few of them to get it running. I just need to enable this add-in, specialize, manage add-ins. So it's my Google add-in. So need to restart. So open, or we can also try to directly start it from the, like here, for instance, I have an example shape script. Yeah, but we will run through this when I've started. So I will start this add-in in a debug mode. Have enabled it, so Enterprise Architect will load it and execute it, and calls the callback functions. And if I jump to, yeah, first there is one. Maybe it's too late. There is one operation called a rule initialize. So this is called when Enterprise Architect, when the add-in is initialized. And here we can specify which namespaces should be used. Here we are. So here I can specify to which namespace Enterprise Architect should call the callback events. Yeah, my simple language, for instance. Okay, so I will open this project again. Good. Let's check if the add-in is running. Yeah, it's running here. And now, if I open again the proof of concept, the hardware model. Remember, previously we just get the sender receiver based on the meta model. Okay, that's a pity. I had this behavior yesterday. That Enterprise Architect crashed. So that's again when you do it live, something may happen. Let's try it again. So I will create a new diagram. Hopefully it works. I should have recorded a video as a backup. Maybe that's the wrong project I'm opening here. So let's open this one and use the hyperlink. So it's here because here I'm referencing maybe another project. Yeah, so with these two callback functions, we have the possibility to just define what appears in the new child diagram, the new child element, and even if there should be a new child diagram or a new child element context menu. And another showcase I have is to just get on the fly a different shape script for any elements within a custom diagram. And because we programmatically add the shape script, we can, on the fly, create a new shape script. So we can, based on the information we gather in the model, we can, on the fly, generate a new shape script, and the diagram will show it. So, to prevent another crash, I will maybe create a new diagram here. My language, I will add this one. I would like to have a hardware diagram, this one. Okay. Case. Okay, I think I've turned off too much, so I will show all the perspectives. Yeah, here we are. I would like to have this hardware block, and if I right-click, go to new child element, there's no flow property anymore. There's a receiver, a sender, and something new. I didn't specify this in the Uml Profile. If I click on this, yeah, I get a message box, and this is provided by the add-in. So if I have a closer look here at the callback function, stereotype, nesting, append child diagram, and append child elements. So here I have my custom pattern, which is this entry specified here, on top. So it's my custom pattern, and then another one is my custom diagram. And the EA menu click event can react on this. So if I get as a menu location the diagram and as a menu name the EA append child element, then I can check if the name is my custom pattern, and then I can show this message box or do whatever I like. I can do the similar things with append new child diagram, and here I have implemented a function which creates two diagrams. Make the first, or make the element composite to the first diagram, and make automatically a hyperlink to the second diagram. Yeah. So if I right-click, say new child diagram, there is no make composite or internal structure diagram. It's only my custom diagram. If I click on this, I get a composite element. If I double-click, I get a diagram. Within the diagram, I have a hyperlink to the second diagram. So this one is find in project browser. It's the first one. It's the composite. If I double-click on this, okay, it's the second one created. So I can do whatever I like in my context menus. And because this is only allowed once in my modeling approach, there is no new child diagram anymore because it exists already. But if someone deletes it, yes, okay, then I can create it again. Yeah. So this is how we can influence the context menus as well. And there are many, many more functions, but we are running out of time. Just one thing I would like to show you. Therefore, I have to. I think I've commented in code. It's the shape script. Get shape script. Okay, it's. Oh yeah. It's commented out in the callback. Stereotype display show stereotype. So here, okay. Let's do it this way. So that's the easiest way. So if you have this callback and return nothing, everything is done as, or everything is rendered as out of the box. But here I return an example shape script, which I've defined on top here. So recompile and start it. Therefore, any of my custom diagram types, like the logical or hardware diagram, I will use this shape script instead. So it doesn't make sense. It's just a showcase. But the next example I show you already considers the model structure. So what data do we have in the model? The shape, which is generated on the fly, looks different. Yeah, normally enterprise I do not take so long. Starting, it's always when we do screen sharing, you may know, then the starting process takes longer. So if I open it, and just open a diagram, so it's a custom diagram, and you see I have completely new shape script based on this callback. So I will quickly set the current diagram as the default on for the next start. So because I have to recompile and restart. So instead of just providing this static shape script, I return a shape script which is generated based on what we have. So if the type is a class, if it's not a class, then return. If it's a class, generate the shape script and create a rectangle, and for any of the attributes of the class, add another rectangle. Yeah, so that's what the shape script should do. We could do something similar within the shape script, because within the shape script we can also have a lot of if then else constraints and conditions, but it's not that dynamic as we can do it here. Okay, let's restart. Okay, I hope you have still this 2 minutes left. And then I will be in the chat for further discussions if you like. So this will be my last minute. So luckily we set the default diagram, then we are immediately on the page we would like to see. And now it looks like this. So there is no attribute, I guess. So if I'm adding an attribute, something, yeah, you see shape is changed. Okay, with the same name already exists, so I add a new one. Okay, that's it. And there are many, many more. So Enterprise Architect is now even better as before, provides much more platform features to support any kind of modeling approach, to make it easier for the modeler to follow this approach and do the right things. Okay, thank you. I will be available in Teams for further chats or questions. Thank you.
Thank you, host. I thank host on behalf of everyone for making this session a wonderful one. Thanks, host, and thanks to everyone for your time and support throughout the session. Hope it was very informative and gives a deeper insight into the topic. Now, host will be available in MS Teams to have a detailed discussion and answer more questions. The team link channel has been posted in the chat window for your quick reference. If anyone is having any difficulties in connecting to Teams, please reach us at the chat window or write us at registrations@globalsummit.com. Thanks once again, everyone, and looking forward to host you all in another informative session. Thank you.
Ciao.